Like in Thai, they called me like a little white girl because my feet were sensitive. They kicked my butt, and I absolutely loved it. I would wake up sore with bruises all up and down my shins and blisters on my feet because they trained outside. It fired me up. It was like, no, I'm not soft, and something about like the rawness, like watching these kids wake up at 5 a.m, go for their morning run, go to school, come back from school and train and get it in the training sessions where they're doing 10-minute rounds, and in between rounds they're not taking rests, they're doing knuckle push-ups, and I'm like, this is what I want. Like, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it now. Like,
Good. So how you doing? You all right for the next 45 minutes or so?
yeah, absolutely. I got my coffee ready. I've been traveling. My friend took a last minute bare knuckle fight. Um, so I flew up to Montana on Friday to corner her, and I just got in last night.
How are you with the bare knuckle boxing? You've not done it, but you kind of help out.
Yeah, I haven't done it. It's crazy. It's really crazy. It's kind of one of those things. It's really raw, and I think you kind of have to build yourself up to it for sure. Um, as an athlete and also as a spectator. Um, but once you understand that both of those guys are in there to do the same thing, um, it's just it's a very fast-paced combat sport.
Would you ever do bare knuckle?
I don't think I have the I just think I've been competing MMA for too long that the rule set aren't conducive to me. I think I would front kick somebody in the face as they were coming in.
Or you'd want to use all the skills, wouldn't you?
I'd want to, yeah, for sure. Like, especially like if they're coming in and just throwing like stupid bombs, I think I'd want to clinch up and take them down, you know, body locks, like there's just so many things that I just do instinctively um, from MMA that I know for sure I would do in bare knuckle.
Yeah, I guess that's, and some of the facial injuries are horrific you get, right?
Well, I just, again, it's like, it really is like, if you want it to be a good fight, um, you kind of have to have that dog in you. And I know I do, but like, to what degree, do you feel comfortable with carrying those scars with you for the rest of your life? And, at what point is it worth it? I don't know. I guess that those are just the things that I think about in my head. Um,
These are the things
because
that go, sorry, these are the things you must think about in MMA a lot.
yeah,
And particularly, well, yeah, I'm afraid that the way it goes, no interview with you can proceed without addressing your fighting name, right? And I'm not, I know you have to talk about this all the time, but like when I first saw your fight, so I first saw you when you got to the UFC because I'm kind of casual fan. I don't watch all the other organizations. So watching Bruce Buffer, the ring announcer, the Octagon announcer, watching him try to get his head round Karate Hottie, Karate Hottie.
he loves saying that actually. Like, it's just one of his favorite like fight names to announce. And yeah, the longer I've been in this sport, the more I have an appreciation for the fighters, regardless if you win or lose, because I know how much it takes to get in there. And the higher up you climb on the ladder, the more pressures like add up. Because when you first start doing it, you fight in small arenas. Like one of my first fights was in the back of a strip club. So it's like
That's how you know it's classy, right?
exactly. So it's like, you know, um, in barnyards and all these places. And so when you first start doing it, it's kind of like, oh, this is fun. You're just kind of doing it for the experience, and you're learning as you go. And then, before you know it, you're fighting um on ESPN where millions of eyes are on you, at MGM, Madison Square Garden, T-Mobile Arena, all these huge events where your main event under the lights, and it just it all of those things add up. People start knowing your name. Um, the wins start mattering because it determines whether or not you get the shot that you want. It gives you more leverage. And so it's like, how do you still go out there and perform and do what you love, and without letting those things affect you?
Because you dropped out of college to become a fighter, right? So, I mean, when you're at the state, which I mean, now that you've had all this success, sure, that sounds cool. But like, there must have been a point with your family, particularly when you've dropped out of college, you're fighting strip clubs. They, I mean, there must have been a point where they're thinking, just go back to college.
Um, I don't know, honestly. They never, my immediate family, not at all. They didn't. They saw what happened when I was at college, and my light had dimmed a lot, and they could see it. They could see that I was just kind of going through the motions. And I was doing good in school. I had a good GPA, but man, I definitely probably was only going through the motions. I was like a zombie. Um, and they saw how they could see it, and they saw how fighting ignited my fire, and they believed in me. So
See, I didn't get that from watching other interviews of yours about the light dimming, because it sounded like you were kind of like, from the interpretation I got from it, was that you were working your way through college and this opportunity came up. But are you saying it was a sort of escape from what, like minor depression or something, maybe?
I wouldn't necessarily say, well, I don't know. I guess I don't know what I would call it.
So you were just a bit low, or
I just think that it wasn't what I expected, and life generally isn't, So you you graduate high school, and I was a very active student in high school, very involved. I did theater, I did choir, I was part of the National Honor Society, I was a part of the leadership team, I was, student senior class president. And so I had an amazing community in high school, and I thought that going to college, it was going to be the same thing. I was going to have a great community. I was going to grow and flourish, and it just wasn't that. I really didn't have any friends. I didn't have any community. I would go to my car to eat lunch, do my homework in the car, take naps in the car. So like when I was going to college, it was a little bit more of an expensive college, but my dad had told me that he was going to be able to help me out, pay for the tuition. And as soon as I registered for that college, my dad got laid off, and so in order to afford the tuition, um, I had to start working. That's why I started working at Hooters. And so I was working Friday, Saturday, Sunday doubles, and then going to school. So it was just like, um, it just wasn't what I expected it to be. And it wouldn't have mattered if it was something that intrigued me, but I just felt like nothing that I was doing was really engaging my mind and my heart. So I wouldn't say I was depressed, but it just definitely, like, I lost my sense of like of purpose.
and did that come back as soon as you started fighting, or did it kind of build up, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So my grandma got sick in Thailand, and my mom was telling me that she was gonna go to Thailand to see her. And I told her, I think this is perfect timing for me. I'm gonna take a semester off and kind of just, you know, take a break, and maybe if I'm taking a break from school, I can come back re-energized. So I went to Thailand with my mom, and it was there that I was thinking, I love to do all different martial arts. I did American freestyle karate, kempo, wushu, and I said, I'm in the motherland of Muay Thai. Like, this is the best place to learn Muay Thai. And so I asked my mom if I could spend 2 weeks at a Muay Thai camp. And she was like, sure. And man, they kicked my butt and I absolutely loved it. And it just reminded me of what martial arts was all about. It reminded me of what life was all about. Those things that challenge you, those things that scare you, and that I mean, I would wake up sore with bruises all up and down my shins and blisters on my feet because they trained outside and they made fun of me because I had like sensitive feet. They called me like in Thai they called me like like a little white girl because my feet were like sensitive, you know.
I see you got your
And
soft feet from wearing shoes and training indoors, right?
exactly, so it like it fired me up. It was like, no, I'm not soft, you know. And so there was just something about like the rawness, like watching these kids, these 5-year-old kids wake up at 5 in the morning, go for their morning run, go to school, come back from school and train, and then and get it in the training sessions where they're doing 10-minute rounds, and in between rounds they're not taking rests, they're doing knuckle push-ups. And I'm like, this is what I want. Like this is, and it just like I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it now. Like um and so it was like this is what's gonna fire me up. And so I like at that point I just decided like I want to continue my martial arts journey. And maybe in my mind I thought that that's what I was supposed to do, was the college route, because that's just the more traditional route. And so I just said, you know, I don't have to live a traditional life, you know. And um, it was a huge decision to make, and I almost felt kind of embarrassed to do it because all my other friends were graduating with degrees and go, you know, going to these like prestigious colleges and stuff. But it wasn't for me.
So that trip to Thailand, is that before you've started done it, before you've done any MMA? That was just to kind of to see what it was like. And then
Yeah.
when you're back home, this is when, is this right? So you were first of all, in the UK we don't have Hooters, right? I've seen it. I know a little bit about it from films, but it's it's a restaurant, right? But
Yeah,
a restaurant with pretty girls working there. Is that basically what
absolutely.
it
Yeah,
is?
basically. Yeah. And you know, it's funny because I'm like, I guess just speaking candidly, like I don't have big Hooters. So like but we would go there because it's kind of just like a fun environment, you know. And as you know, as a young adult, you would go there with your friends and hang out, watch the football games, and enjoy like, you know, bar foods, wings and beer.
So
And
it's
I
not
yeah.
like it's not like a sleazy place then. It's just they just happen to have pretty girls working there. Is that how it?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, it's just a fun environment with pretty girls that work there. That's just what it is, basically.
And it was when you were working there that you ended up working as a ring girl. Is that right?
Yeah, you know,
So
locally
carrying
they
the cards in
yep,
other fights, yeah. So
with on some local fight cards.
and so and at this point you've done martial arts, but not MMA. So you've done your black belt in karate, I think it was. So you're watching these people fight, thinking maybe I could do that. Is that?
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what how it was. It was like I had no idea what MMA was, and I kind of it was during the time when there were still blockbusters. I don't know if they have blockbusters in the UK, but
We did,
that's how you
yeah,
would,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like that's how you would rent movies and stuff. And you know, we would go to blockbusters, and that was kind of like our family's thing. We would walk to blockbusters and rent 2 or 3 movies and watch them over the weekend. And I remember even seeing like UFC uh uh DVDs for rent. And in my mind I thought it was kind of like the WWE, like fake wrestling type stuff. So I never really paid any mind to it. And when I became the ring girl for it, I started learning all the rules. I'm like, oh, so it's with small gloves, but you can. It's not just boxing. You can wrestle and you can kick and you can do all these things. And I was like, so you can basically, they're like, yeah, it's mixed martial arts. So you can use any martial art? And they're like, yeah, as long as you win. I was like, wow, that's cool. I think I could actually do that, you know? And I was talking to the promoter and he kind of said, I got a black belt in American freestyle karate, been competing since I was 10, you know? And he kind of was like, okay, yeah, sure.
Sure, yeah, sure you have, love, yeah. That's the thing. So he just looked at you. Do you think he looked at you as a pretty girl and thought, or
I just think that a lot of, now looking back at it, there's a lot of people are intrigued with the idea of being a fighter. It's kind of like being a rock star, you know, you're like, man, that would be cool. I want to be a warrior. But like when it comes down to it, like when it really comes down to like step inside the cage, like not very many people, you know, really like that idea.
had you done enough martial arts to sort of have the pain and to really push through stuff? Because I know some people you can do a bit of tip tap martial arts and maybe you don't put yourself through that much. So was there a point when you started MMA when you're like, ow, this hurts, I don't like this? Or did you just did it just ignite the warrior and you weren't bothered by that?
Yeah, point. I mean, I don't know if anybody like knows the difference between point sparring and like fighting, but point sparring is basically like an elevated tag, you know. And so that's the type of combat sport that I was used to. And it wasn't that I was definitely not used to it. And but it wasn't like a ow, I don't want to do this. It was like, ow, that hurt. Let me get you back. So it really ignited that fight in me. I think that there are really two types of people, fight or flight. And you really never know what type of person you are until you're put into those situations. And I'm definitely a fight person. You know, if you get me riled up, I'm not gonna run from the situation.
But you became a champion of Invicta FC, which is a women's
Yes.
organization, right? And at this point, there were no women in the UFC. And in fact, the UFC boss had said women will never be in the UFC, which seems amazing now because they've gone on and been, top billing along with the men and far ahead, I have to say, of other sports,
Mm-hmm.
because, the biggest sport in here in the UK is football and soccer. And it's only just getting some recognition for the women's game, and it's growing bigger now. Whereas MMA, I mean, women are, they're headlining events all over the place. So it's been an extremely rapid transformation to no, we're not having women, to
Mm-hmm.
having women top of the bill, which has been amazing. But at that point, so you won this championship, and you had a child, right, at this point. So your daughter's 11 now, is that right?
Yes.
Um, oh, it's okay. I've got a 12-year-old, so it's just amazing to see. And I find it hard to reconcile these two sides of you because you're obviously, you're very active on social media and you're obviously a great mum and love that side of your life. And a lot of the times you'll put mum before you'll put fighter. But the one thing I didn't know that I just heard this morning actually was that when you had your first fight back, you were still breastfeeding.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, for sure. So I try to explain to people, like, because they're like, does your daughter, do you bring your daughter to your events? Does she know what you do? And I was like, 100% absolutely. She knows everything that I do. She's been along for the ride even before she knew it.
She's been at all your fights, right? Pretty much.
Pretty
Um,
much is with the exception of the ones during COVID.
okay, so where practical, she's been at all your fights.
Yes.
Well, I mean, what's it? And there are some well publicized pictures of you not looking like you do now, right? With a kind of, it's not the worst post-fight face I've seen, but
Yeah.
you've had some pretty significant facial injuries and various other things as well. What's it like? What's it like facing your daughter after that? Is that tough?
I think it is, absolutely. It is tough. But I also think that um, you know, our children learn from our actions more than they do from the things that we tell them. And it's important for her to see all sides of my journey, not just the good. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly, because life life is you in life you experience more failures than you do successes. And if I just showed her, yeah, babe, you could do anything you want, and it was like a Disney like movie where you failed once and then you got back on your feet and you became this superstar, like that's just not true. And I think it gives, if you tell your children that, then when they do experience adversity, I think it gives them a false sense of confidence that they'll get that all they have to do is try hard one time, or it so I think it's important for them to see the bad and for her to see me um go through those things and pick myself up, dust my shoulders off, and through the tears, through the bruises, continue to truck forward.
Yeah, I think it's because children, they want to think their parents are sort of invulnerable and can do anything. And I think growing up, it's important to realize that your parents are human beings
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard, really. It is. Like, when I think about how I viewed my parents as a child. And when you're a kid, it's like that's mom and that's dad. Like that's kind of their role. You don't think that they're allowed to have emotions, or they're allowed to waver. Um, and then as you get older, you realize, like, oh man, like, um, they had their own set of emotions, their own journey, their own problems that they were dealing with, on top of taking care of me. You don't realize those things until you become an adult and you have to go through your own set of issues.
Yeah, and I think when you're little, you think grown-ups have kind of got it all sorted, but it's when you have kids, you realize that you're still one yourself to an extent, in that you're still the same person you were. Okay, hopefully your toilet trained and things like that, but you've got various childish things within you. And I've seen having my own kids, this is a chance to properly grow up now, because you see them being childish, and okay, you might have the same feelings, but it's up to you to kind of. So I think you grow up as a child, and then you have kids, and then it's your chance to grow up again
Really
in
grow
a
up.
way. Yeah, because you have to, like, well, now I've actually got to grow up, because I can't be the one
Right.
throwing my toys out.
I,
No.
I've come to realize as well is that there are so many people in this world that are adults, but haven't really become a man or a woman. They haven't, I don't think age necessarily um, gives you the passage to say that you've matured into an adult. And so I've seen that, where I've seen some, like, young adults are very mature and responsible, and have come into their own. And I've seen the opposite, where I've seen 50-year-olds still acting like children. And so I've really realized, now that I'm older, that we all have our separate journeys, and there are some adults that still haven't learned um learn those things for them to really, like, come into their own as adults, you know?
Yeah, you don't get any points for just sticking around and getting older, do
Yeah.
you? You have to do something. You have to be moving forward in some way, don't you?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, when we're growing up as children, we're forced to, because we go to school, there's something put in front of us. We have, kindergarten through 5th grade, and then that's an accomplishment. And then we go through high school, and that's another accomplishment. There's something set in front of us that's like an actual tangible goal. And then college, there's all these like tangible goals that are put in front of us. And then a lot of times, once those things that we're obligated to do are all done, you think, okay, I'm done, I'm set for the rest of my life. No, like, I think as adults, it's the most important thing to continue to learn and to continue to grow. And that's another reason why I love martial arts, is because it's endless learning. the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything. And that's the only way you actually grow, is putting things in front of you that you don't know, breaking it down and trying to figure it out, and and actually allowing yourself challenges and room to grow.
Have you got a fight coming up? Have you got one booked? No.
No, I don't have anything booked right now. I'm kind of just waiting on a couple of things. Um, and and then we'll kind of talk to the promotion. We're thinking maybe we'll get something by the end of the year.
Because I mean, you're fighting a long time now, right?
16 years now.
It's a long time. Because yeah, so I mean, you still look about 23, I would say, and I'm not saying that to flatter you, but you do. You have that very youthful look. But I guess they're tough years fighting, right? I mean, they take a lot out of you. Do you sort of look forward and think how much longer you want to do it for, or is that not a good way to think as a fighter? You've always got to think. I know, because I almost hesitate to ask, because as soon as you ask anyone over the age of 29 about about the future, it's sort of like they often don't want to talk about it, because you're one of the best in the world. People, if you are one of the best in the world, people still want to make a run at the title,
right?
And it's amazing to think how, in terms of elite, it is. Because for people that don't know, the UFC is by far the biggest MMA organization in the world, and there are tons of them, right? There are ones you'll not have heard of down the road from me, and they're all over the world. So this is the very pinnacle of a massive, massive sport, and you've fought the very best there are out there. So this is an extremely elite thing that I think the casual fans possibly don't realize. They might watch an occasional main event, see someone lose, and think, "Oh, they're probably not very good." But everyone in there is awesome, and you say you fought the best in the world. But I mean, going back to it, is it something you think of, like, I don't want to fight past this age, or I don't want to fight until I've accomplished this, or do you have those thoughts?
Yeah, I think it would be silly of me not to. I have to be realistic about the situation. Fighting is a young man's sport, and a fighter's career is very short-lived. I'm extremely lucky and blessed to have been able to fight for this long, and still have my wits about me. I do believe that I'm still in my prime. I'm 36 years old, and I'm healthy. Um, Still hungry for knowledge, and still hungry to get in there and capture those moments. I think sorry, it's my coffee machine.
It's all good, man.
I'm but I also understand, like, these are the final chapters of my MMA story. And I know that. But I'm the one in charge of writing my story. And so for me, it's like I do think about it. And that's why during my times off, like this time, I'm taking the time to see what other avenues there are, in life. Who else am I outside of being a fighter? Because it's not just my sole identity as a fighter. And if I did feel that way, it would be devastating when I was retired, because it's kind of like somebody that's in the military and gets out of the military, because your sole purpose is very, you get tunnel vision, and you get so focused because you're in the zone. And then when you pull yourself out of it, you lose quite a bit. You lose a community, you lose purpose, you lose your sense of self, and those things are important. And so I think it's important as a fighter to really find out who you are before you step away, because and also just like give yourself worth outside of being a fighter. I'll still be fighting, but I also have, opened businesses. I've also ventured into doing movies. I've also, been behind the scenes doing analytic work for different for the UFC. And there's so many things that I love to do. I just have to remember to be as passionate about those things as I am about fighting. I haven't thought about retirement because there are things that I still feel like I haven't accomplished in the UFC that I still want to. So that's kind of where my mind's at.
And what would that be to your accomplishment? What would that mean?
I, I, for a long time it was the belt, you know, and it's just there's just so many things that are outside of my control in order to get there. It's not up to me to match up my fights. It's not up to me to say, yeah, Michelle, it's your turn. It's not up to me to put me in a certain spot for the rankings. So there are a lot of things that are outside of my control. And so for me, I think about moments that I want to be able to cherish for the rest of my life. I think about how much Holly Holm was on cloud nine when she shook the world and knocked out Ronda Rousey. Like those moments where you're in the zone and nothing else matters and everything is in slow motion and you're just able to pick your shots and you're 2 steps ahead of your opponent. I want that moment in the UFC. I want a moment where it's like I'm in control of myself, I'm in control of my opponent, I'm in control of the environment. And I was the one that got myself there and was able to put on the performance of a lifetime.
Okay, so not necessarily the belt, but some sort of transcendent performance are you looking for? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
So something, but you've had tons of amazing performances before. What was lacking in those?
I think I have. I think my performance with Paige was amazing. I thought that when I fought Angela Hill, I was able to kind of like pull the dog out in me and really come through and grab that victory. But I think it's just kind of like that. It I don't know how else to explain it other than it being a natural high that kind of can escape you. And when you when you haven't tasted it in a while, it's like you yearn for it, and that's what you chase for. I've had submission of the nights. I've had fight of the nights. Um, I'd like to be able to like showcase my striking. So I'd like to be able to get like a knockout of the night. I'd like to be able to showcase my karate background and allow my give myself permission to flourish inside the octagon under the lights.
It makes sense. You mentioned Holly Holm. I think you quite often, for me as a fan, you quite often learn more about people when they lose. So one I'm thinking of with her is either the next fight or the fight after that. I can't remember after she won the title. She lost to a rear naked choke. Right now, most people they tap out when they realize it's too, they realize the choke's on, they tap out. The last thing she did before going unconscious, I don't remember, was she threw two.
Yeah.
Her brain was obviously going to shut down, and she just threw a flurry of punches into the air. And so it's almost like she's going to shut down, she's losing the fight, but her dying instinct is just to carry on fighting. And
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing, that clip of her just trying to punch her way out, because you just think there's no quitting this woman. And that's not to say, no disrespect to anyone that taps out. There's nothing wrong with it, but
Right.
just seeing that refusal in her,
It's amazing. It really is.
Or
She's that way.
even Conor McGregor, you know, he broke his leg and he was still like
Talking
verbally
crap.
abused. He's still talking crap. And a lot of people don't like, you know, and those are two very different, you know, different figures. One sort of wholesome, lovely, and then Conor McGregor, we all know what he's like. But yeah,
Yeah,
there's
but it's
something
still
of
the
that
same
dog in
concept.
there. Sorry.
That's it. That's it. It's still the same concept, right? It's like, once a fighter, always a fighter. It's just, it's in them. And I definitely think that's why I have such a high respect for Holly, because I've seen her, I mean, I've seen her shake the world, and accomplish great things. But I've also experienced, seeing her get knocked out cold, and the type of person she was after those extremely low lows. And I was blown away and inspired more than anything that I've ever seen, because you know in those scenarios, most of us would want to tuck away and hide, and not you know be exposed to the world. And she would you know swallow her pride, wipe off the blood from the fight, and go out to the press conference and congratulate her opponent, and be in the gym the very next day.
Yes, amazing. I think this is what, you know, people that don't fight. I mean, the fascination. Obviously, it's fun to watch, but I think the reason everyone has that sort of hankering is it's it's hard to find anything else as real. You know,
Hmm.
um, I mean, pick a job. There's nothing that's just kind of that makes you as vulnerable and as real as going out there, you know, and putting it all on the line. So I think there's huge respect for that. But yeah, seeing people like her just zero quit is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's heartbreaking. That's why people, are so, that's why the sport is so intriguing, because you get to see somebody celebrate something that they've overcome, but you also see the other side of it. You see the heartbreak of it, and you see it simultaneously.
Yeah, and it makes me. I have to say, like, I mean, I love the sport, and but I'm a slightly not a reluctant fan, but I've slight misgivings in that. Yeah, you when someone gets knocked out, there's something really weird, I think, about watching one person celebrating, jumping onto the edge of the cage, and the other person is receiving medical attention and maybe hasn't
Hmm.
yet regained consciousness. I
Hmm.
think you sort of catch yourself there. You can't, as a fighter, you can't be worrying about that because
Right.
you need to be going full out. But there is something weird about the spectacle of, celebration, crazy celebration on the one side, and the other person at best is devastated because they've lost, and that means, but at worst is possibly unconscious or being helped back to their feet, or
Right.
God forbid in certain organizations worse. So do you have any of those misgivings about it, or can you not afford to?
I think that um I've I've been able to wrap my head around it in a way that it is necessary. That balance in life, the light and the dark, it's like two sides of the same coin. It's like the yin and yang, day and night. We all can pretend that we want things to be, sunshine and rainbows, but there is a necessary balance to life, and I think that's what fighting shows, is just like both sides of it. And um it's just kind of the way that life balances itself out.
Yeah, for sure. Have you had sort of low moments when things have not gone your way, or you've had a fight that you've had fights cancelled because of injury and family issues and stuff? Have you had points where you just think, this isn't
I
for me
do.
anymore? You do.
I don't think that this is for me anymore, but I think, like, sometimes I'm just like, why? Like, if I'm being honest, like, the feelings that I go through after a loss is, I put so much into this, like my whole heart, my whole life, my whole soul. My family sacrifices. I sacrifice time from my family, and for what? Like what? For 15 minutes of the world watching me fail. And it's easy. It's so easy to give into all those negativities. And I think it's because those feelings are so devastating that they stick with you and they haunt you and they weigh you down. Um, and It's so much easier to carry that burden than it is to look at the positive. You know, it's so crazy to me how um, you can go through an entire fight camp. That's amazing. And even an entire fight, because in my last fight, even if we're talking about my last fight, I was winning before I wasn't.
Hmm.
And, um, you know, in a split second, it's all taken away from you. And it's easy to think, like, it's easy to allow that moment of failure um, overshadow all of your successes, all the things that I did well, all the, even just cutting weight to 115 is a huge accomplishment. Learning, adding new tools to my repertoire is a huge accomplishment. Being on that stage, stepping inside the octagon, all of those things are huge accomplishments. But why do you not give yourself permission to celebrate in those just because, you know, you lost for a single moment? And so I find myself getting down and being sad about all that, and then I have to realize, like, that is just a singular moment. That is just a blip in just one moment in an accumulation of many moments where I've had successes. Like, why do I have to put such importance on a win or a loss when there's, in my opinion, I've gained, I've grown, and I'm still evolving, and I didn't give myself permission to congratulate myself for those things. And so sometimes we get it backwards. Sometimes we put too much um, importance on the wrong moment. You know.
And what is your answer to that question? Why, how do you reconcile that? Why do I beat myself up over this one bad moment when I've had all these lots of, what's your answer? Why do
I
you?
I I think it's just because that's what we're trained to do, you know? Because it is so hard to win, we put such a huge importance on it. And especially as a professional fighter where that's my career, it is important. It's so strange how, like, it has to be the most important thing, but you also have to not give a shit. You also have to, like, understand that it is it really means nothing at the end of the day. I'm still going home with my family that loves me. I'm healthy, you know. Um, so it's
Crashing the ground beneath our feet, playing with fire, so take the
but
heat.
yeah, like,
We got eyes all in the
win, I get paid half of what I was initially slated to get paid. I, get knocked down the rankings. I have less leverage going into my next fight. I might get cut from the UFC. Like, if I mean, it can go on and on and on. The reporters will talk about how I need to retire. They'll say that I'm, done, da 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 da, and then it just adds up and it starts to snowball into this huge, like, haunting monster that that you can't get a hold of. Or it can be like, yeah, it was I went left when I was supposed to go right. And what? Like, you
I
know?
guess there's always going to be people that give you a hard time, particularly if you've got other stuff going on. I think women get this more than men, but even the men get it. Like one of the male fighters, Luke Rockhold, is a kind of good-looking model type, and I think he gets hate just because of that. He oh well, how can he be good at fight and be so good looking? So the sort of thing, it's unfair that you've got too many qualities. So plus anyone in the public eye is going to get grief, and because you do a lot of social media stuff, there must be some assholes out there. Are you good at just shutting it out then?
I think a lot of the times those people are miserable in their lives. You know, they're so focused on other things that they've lost sight of themselves, and their focus and their priority is to critique the way others live their lives when they haven't even taken the time to put challenges in front of themselves. And that's kind of how I just wrapped it around my mind is, you know, my smallest failure is most likely something that they'll never have the chance to do.
Saying that, yeah, I think that's spot on. It's exactly why it's not worth dedicating any of your headspace to it. So if you just got good at just focusing on the positive things and putting your stuff out, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't really pay any mind to it. I think that it really is a waste of time. There's this like old folk story that talks about two wolves in your mind, and they're always battling, you know, one black wolf and one white wolf, and the white wolf is full of courage and positivity and hope, and the other wolf is full of, you know, hate and resentment and doubt and fear, and they're always battling. And the boy asked the grandpa, what, you know, so what wolf wins? And the grandpa said, the wolf that you feed, you know, the one that you give fuel to. And it's so true. It's like you think you can or you can't, and either way you're right, you know. So it really is you know, on what you put your energy into.
I like that. Which wolf wins? The wolf that you feed.
Mm-hmm.
Is this from your mum's side of the family? This sounds like wise old pie saying. Really.
It's actually a native story.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like it. But yes, and it's very true, isn't it? What do you know, which one do you allow
To grow.
to grow? Yeah, it's a very good point. And it reminded me of something I wrote down that you said in another interview, that you said, because you know, I think you're being emotional about something, I can't remember what it was, and you said that you think vulnerability is a strength, which, having talked about needing the dog in you to fight, do you think you need the vulnerability is also important? Because I think a lot of fighters would think about pushing the vulnerability away and making themselves, you know, as invulnerable as possible. But you saying that you think it's a strength, vulnerability, did I hear it right in the interview?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. You know, there's no, you know, you're going to be put in a place where you are exposed and you're vulnerable, you know, at one point in your life, especially in fighting. And the ones that are able to, you know, to pull through that are the ones that are able to advance, to get to that next level. And those ones that are able to accept it, you know, I think of, you know, Adesanya, Holly, John, all those people, when, you know, when push comes to shove and, you know, they're put in a place where, you know, they are vulnerable, how do they act? You know, how do they, you know, get through that? And it's just acceptance, right? Like, it is what it is. Like, this is me, and we're moving forward from it. You know, it's just, they accept that part of them.
So yeah, accepting your own vulnerability and realizing it's part of you.
For sure.
And you've been, unlike a lot of fighters, you've been with the same gym for a long time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much since the start of my career, I've been at Jackson Wink.
And do you think, in that loyalty, do you think that once you're not fighting anymore, whenever that is, do you think that means it's more likely that you'll carry on like training other fighters and stuff, or will the lure of commentary and movies potentially, would you know which direction you might be pulled in? Or you think you'll always want to be involved with martial arts?
I would love to be able to corner. I'd love to be able to give back. And I think there's so much to learn as a teacher as well. You know, right now I'm a fighter, so I'm the student. But I think it would be very beautiful for me to have gone full circle and to be able to impart some knowledge that I've been able to accumulate over the years to somebody else that is going on their journey, and to be there for them as a mentor. I think that's very important.
But presumably already at the gym, you're one of the people that others look to. So presumably you're kind of helping others out along the way as you go. Is it, or does it not work like that? Is it very selfish, focused on your own stuff when you're fighting?
No, I am. I feel like it's so funny because, like, you know, I've been fighting for 16 years and I've been at the gym since I was 21 years old. And, you know, at the gym, they call me Peanut because when I was going into the gym, I mean, I got a little peanut head. When I first went over there, you know, I was just this little young, innocent, green fighter. And, you know, I was everybody's baby sister, you know. And it's so funny for me to wrap my head around the idea that I'm one of the OGs, one of the veterans at the gym now. But I wouldn't want to say within this last couple of years, I've really really accepted that role and have realized, and in looking around and seeing all of these new up and coming fighters, young and hungry, eager for a mentor. And I think it's important for me to step into that role and be there to talk to them about the ups and the downs, about the journey, and to explain to them, like, it isn't a sprint, it's a marathon, and you have to be able to be in it for the long haul. Like, your success isn't going to be overnight. You have to accept the idea that maybe you won't you know, hit your stride until you're a decade in. And if you're okay with that, then you're in the right sport. And if you're not, maybe you should, you know, do some introspecting and see, you know, what is it that you have to do to get your head wrapped around that.
Because I guess these young people, they might come in, they think, give me 6 months and I'll be champion. And you're saying, whoa, easy now.
I mean, you never know, but I think that's, you know, that's kind of and the mindset of a young, eager, you know, fighter is, you know, they see all this success, and then they walk into the gym and they see me and Holly Holm and like this roster of fighters that are in the UFC, and they think, you know, maybe if I do this for a couple of months, I can be where they're at. And you don't want to spat their fire, but at the same time you want them to understand, like, it's going to take a little bit more than that.
It's funny, isn't it? You don't do that with other sports. Like you don't watch the golf and think, or the tennis and think, I could do that in a few months. But there's something about fighting. There's something, because it's so primal. I mean, obviously you've got these thousands of hours of skills built onto it, but at its fundamental nature, it's still a primal thing. So everyone has some fight in them. Maybe not that much, but everyone's got some fight. Everyone can fight, you know, if they're defending their child, for example. Everyone's got some fight in them. So I think that it leads to this delusion where particularly blokes, not women, but they're watching it going, yeah, I could do that. I could do that. Yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird. Yeah.
It is that way. And it's also kind of like the learning curve in fighting. I always try to explain to people, like, when you first like get into it, like, you absorb so much, and so you go and you skyrocket, and you also, you know, like you said, we all have that innate instinct to fight, you know, and so you go like this in your trajectory, and you know, you get a win, you get a knockout, you get a sub, and you have all of this initial success. But when you start getting into the upper echelons of competition, you know, it gets smaller and smaller. And so the learning curve goes from this, you know, from you know, like growing leaps and bounds, to this, you know,
To very fine details you're talking
very
about.
fine
Yeah.
details. And the difference between you and a champ is a centimeter, is a, you know, a millisecond, you know.
Yeah, I think people, like, you see how many fights go the distance, right? And if, like, for people that don't understand the sport, you say, well, how good do you think the two of them have to be, and how close they have to be to fight for 15 or 25 minutes and to not be able to finish the fight? You know,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, if someone fights someone who can't fight, it doesn't last very long, you know.
Right.
But to be able to go 15 or 20 or more minutes and not have a clear victory, have to go to the judges, this means you're like, the skills are really, really close, you know.
Very high level, yeah. And you know, at the beginning of anybody's fight career, there are people still trying to figure out if they want to fight or not. So like you said, you'll get into the octagon with that person and you get this amazing victory, you know. And so those people are kind of, that's what happens at the beginning of a fighter's career, is that people are getting weeded out. It's like, yeah, you thought you wanted to fight, but you really, you know, that's just something that you're doing experimentally, or that was just on your bucket list, or something you thought maybe you wanted to do as a hobby. And then people get weeded out, and as you climb the ladder, you know, it's like when you're playing video games, it's like every time you climb the ladder, you know, your opponents get harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What, when you're not in fight camp like now, how hard do you train? Are you thinking of like recovering, or are you keeping your fitness level up? How hard do you push?
I think it's I'm still training. So when I'm in fight camp, I usually train 3 to 4 times a day. With Saturday I use for one hard training, and then Sunday is recovery day. And I'm in the zone, and I'm watching a lot of tape, and we're doing a lot of specific training for a particular fighter. When I'm out of camp, it's just the time to grow. So when you're in camp, you kind of zero in and focus, you know, dial in your focus. And then when you're out of camp, you expand your horizon and kind of take a bigger look at, you know, your fight career as a bigger picture. What can I add to my toolbox that has nothing to do specifically with a certain fighter, but that's something that's going to make me a better fighter. And so I kind of broaden my horizon in that sense. And so I probably train once, twice a day, and is more about learning and growing and adding new tools to my own skill set.
So you're training for what for a normal person would be quite a lot, but it's maybe like half the amount you'd be training
Yeah.
in camp. So, okay.
Yeah. And I also think that it would be unrealistic to try to, you know, all year round train 3 4 times a day, not on a physical standpoint, but on a mental standpoint. Because when you're getting ready for a fight, you're getting ready for battle, and you have to put your mind in a certain spot to do that. You put yourself in that fight or flight instinct, so all of your instincts are heightened. You're in the zone. You're focused on a singular thing, and it takes a lot out of you, and you're asking a lot of your body and your mind to do that. And you can definitely burn out very quickly if you're in that state 24/7.
Your husband is in your corner, right? Like,
Hmm.
and what's that like? Is it weird sometimes?
I think we've done it for long enough to where we've got a good handle on it, and we understand that, you know, we both have to wear different hats at different times in our lives. And so I have to give him the respect, which is a hard for me to wrap my head around, like when he's coaching me, because it's like sometimes he'll say things like, I'm just going to go tell Coach Wink because you don't listen to me when I tell you this, but Coach Wink will tell you the same thing and you'll take it in, you know. So it's like,
Yeah, I was wondering if, like, because my wife has a voice that she uses with me but doesn't use with anyone else, and I
yes.
sometimes say to her, if you spoke to anyone else in that voice, which you never would, because
Yeah.
you know, you can sort of be as rude as you like to your other half, can't you?
Yes. Yeah. And so we have to kind of work that out, right? So sometimes he's, he's wearing the coach hat and I have to wear the student hat. I can't be his wife when he's trying to coach me because nothing gets through. I'm like, why are you talking to me like that?
Must be hard for him. Must be hard for him though too, because obviously, and you're going out there and getting punched and stuff, and
It is.
I guess he's just having to see you as a fighter rather than his wife at that point. As much as you can do that.
Yeah, I think that that kind of is the hardest thing. Sometimes, he's my husband and he's my protector. So sometimes he sees me in the octagon and he wants to jump in and save me, and he can't. And I know that it's hard for him to look at me sometimes after the fight because of the damage that I've taken. And like, I think, he feels some like a sense of guilt for not being able to jump in and protect me. But it's like, it's not about protecting me because I chose to step in there and do that. We both signed the dotted line, but I just think like instinctively, like, in any other scenario, he wouldn't let me get touched. He wouldn't let me get hurt.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Must be. I guess there's very few people who know what that's like. In the, as we said, women's fighting's new. Most of them don't have their husband there, so he's in a fairly unique position. I can't think of anyone else who's having to do that.
Yeah.
It must be tough.
I think for him, the best way that he can protect me is to equip me with the best training. And I think that's what gives him some sense of peace, is if we've gone through a fight camp and he's seen my training and he knows that I'm ready to go in there for battle. Like that's it. That's what puts him at ease.
Yeah, because he's got a specific role there. He's not there as your husband, because MMA fighters at the top level, they'll normally have a jiu-jitsu coach, a wrestling coaches, and he's I guess he's your boxing coach. Is that how it works, or is it not?
Yeah, I would say he's helped me with the boxing, but Josh just has an amazing eye for fighting in general. He can pick apart things. He can watch footwork and see what they're gonna do. And I would say he's actually been in the MMA game longer, like in the professional sense, longer than he has for boxing because of my career. So he really has an eye to pick apart fights. And so his role in my corner is to be an eye from the outside. He's there for me throughout fight week to help me cut weight, to keep my mind right. He's there when none of the other coaches are there, so he can kind of put the pieces together. And when I'm talking to my sports psychologist, he gets to hear all of that. When I'm working with Coach Wink, he sees that. When I'm working with Barata and my jiu-jitsu, he gets to see that. So he's kind of the outside eye, putting all the pieces together and kind of orchestrating and keeping all the coaches on the same page.
Sounds like he's doing an amazing job as a coach and a husband.
Oh yeah, absolutely he is. And I know it's a lot, but I think it's cool, and that's what makes the victories that much more exciting.
Yeah, definitely. We talk a little bit about this charity that we've both been involved with. So this is how we met. So there's a charity, for people who don't know, in the UK called Reorg, and it started by a former Royal Marine called Sam Sheriff. And the basic idea is people in the military, particularly leaving the military, often can have problems. They can, injuries and mental health issues. And it's started off as jiu-jitsu, but now all martial arts and all physical activity as a way of kind of getting people back on track. How did you first hear about Reorg?
Well, I was in Wales for 5 months last year, filming a movie called Havoc, and Tom Hardy is the main star in that movie, and he is like a avid jiu-jitsu practitioner and is just like absolutely in love with jiu-jitsu. And it was really cool to have the chance to work with him and get to know Tom. And anytime we weren't on set filming the movie, we were rolling. And he was the one that started talking to me about reorg, and got me a really cool gi and some rash guards, and then they put me in touch with you.
Oh, awesome. Well, I actually saw him earlier. He speaks very highly of you and your husband and your daughter, he said, because he must have met all of you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. He said to say hello, and says your family's amazing.
He is so awesome, and I think it's just it was really cool kind of being away from being away from the fighting and in a completely different world. But it really did, fighting for so long, you get into this routine of what life is, and to have the ability to see somebody that isn't, fighting isn't their full time, or martial arts isn't what their full time is, but to kind of see Tom's passion in jujitsu, and how excited he was to learn the smallest thing, and how like attention oriented he was in learning, kind of reignited my fire for martial arts and for learning, and kind of reminded me of why I chose this path to begin with. And it's because you get to learn all these cool things, and then you get to try to apply them.
Yeah, he's crazy for the jiu-jitsu now. He's properly mad for it. But
yeah, it becomes addicting for sure.
And the good thing about reorg, I think, is it opens up to, because both reorg and this sort of sister organization in the UK, in the US, We Defy Foundation, they've both got as people, they've both got a triple amputee involved. So, and this is how they started, because basically, you've lost a limb, 2 limbs, 3 limbs in combat. You don't think you're going to be able to do martial arts, and like it can apply in a minor way. As me and Tom are both in our 40s and had lots of injuries, and you kind of think, well, maybe martial arts isn't for me, but it's for everyone. Anyone who wants to do it, of course, because there's no, if as long as you've got a limb, and you're willing to try, you can get involved, and the effect it has on your life is incredible, because particularly people that they've been injured, or they've been mental health problems to the point where they feel that their life's over and they can't do anything anymore. And you get this, not only you get this physical buzz from doing a sport that pushes you, you get the whole community thing that goes with it. It's lovely going to jiu-jitsu gyms. Everyone says hello to each other. Everyone's welcome each other in. It's weird for people that don't know, because you're then trying to rip each other's limbs off, but it's a weird thing.
I mean, that's kind of like what I was talking about earlier, as far as it being like two sides to the same coin. You know what I mean? It's weird how through pain, through blood, sweat, and tears, you learn how to love, and you learn compassion, and you become humbled. Like, and I think that's what you get when you're in the military. You get a community of and a brotherhood of people that have your back in very, very tough situations. And when you're pulled from that, it's like you lose a very real sense of yourself, and a really there's a comfort and a trust that that you have a group of people that have your back, and when that's taken away from you, it's kind of scary, and then that's what martial arts gives people, is that sense of community, that knowing, like, man, we put ourselves through really tough situations, and at the end of the day, I'm here for you.
Yeah, and all the people I've talked to through reorg, no one wants to badmouth their whatever branch of the military they've been in, but they do tend to say the same story, that if you're having problems, you don't really want to talk to anyone about it, because you want to look tough. So if you're having, you've seen some bad things, and you may be having PTSD or whatever, they find it difficult to talk about it because they don't want to be that person who's, you know, got a question mark over their head and people are going to wonder if they can ride them. So they bottle stuff up.
Right.
And when they leave, there's no kind of decompression training or kind of like checking up on them. You sort of leave and they give you enough money to probably go and get drunk for a while. The worst thing you should do, but they don't, you know, it's a problem. So this is why charities like these have come up. Again, no one wants to badmouth the military, but it's definitely an issue, you know, with what it's like. People going out seeing horrific things and then just go out into the world, and you know, you won't find a job that's the same, because as you say, nothing's the same as being in the military, because it's, you know, they're going. So I think having this group of people that they can, you know,
confide in,
and find a thing that they're into, just to find a thing, whether it's jiu-jitsu or anything else, that blows away the cobwebs, gets you sweating every day, and just gets that balance right.
I think so. And I think that like you were saying, like it is an outlet, right? And to me, it's kind of like it is a passageway. It is something that will for sure make you vulnerable, but in a way that gives you strength, you know? And so for sure, I think that a lot of people have issues and it's hard for them to talk about that. And that's why they feel like the only thing that they can do is, you know, turn to alcohol and stuff like that. But it is definitely not the only thing that you can do. And that's why I think martial arts is such an amazing tool to open yourself up, just exposing yourself in a way to where, you know, you're not the only one exposing yourself, because you can't roll by yourself, you know. So when you're having this roll, it is an intimate connection with somebody else, and they're doing it with you, and in that sense, you guys have shared a moment, just like in fighting. Like that's why I have the utmost respect for anybody that I've stepped into the octagon with, because at the end of the fight, whether you want it or not, you've given yourself to that, a part of yourself to that person, and you've taken a part of them for yourself. That's something that you will move forward with, and you will forever be changed for those, you know, from those moments. And I think it is a perfect segue into being okay with being vulnerable. And then from there, like when I go into the gym when I'm having a bad day, sometimes you don't even want to talk, but you just want to be around other people that know how you feel. And just being around other people that know how you feel gives you the comfort that you know everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, and generally you're in a different place when you leave anyway. You know, you go through that and you come out feeling different. You know, lifted up. I always say you never regret going to train, do you?
No.
You know,
I mean, I think sometimes you go in and you come out and you're injured, you know what I mean? But that's just kind of a part that just something that comes along with training, is like, you know, just
yeah, those things.
No, but I do think it is amazing, you know, what you guys are doing. And just for anybody that's listening or thinking about, like, you know, joining a martial arts, I would say don't hesitate one bit to do it, you know, because, you know, as a martial artist, we all know that you got to start somewhere, and we're all accepting of everybody's journey. And for me, I flourish in seeing somebody else learn and grow and be like step into their own through martial arts. And so, like I always tell people, the gym is my, you know, is my safe haven, is my sanctuary. It's where I go to feel at home. And so I would say that like there is no judgment, because like we all, that's what we do when we go there. We get to punch each other in the face and then laugh about it afterwards, you know.
Yeah. Definitely. Oh, that's amazing. Well, listen, it's great to talk to you, and best of luck with everything, with your amazing family, first of all, fighting whenever that comes up again. And yeah, we'll be in touch again. It'd be lovely to talk to you again at some point.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. All the best. Bye.
Have a good one. Okay, have a good one.
You too. Cheers, Michelle. Bye.
Bye.